when I took that first drink, I said, this is not going to do to me what it did to my dad. So I went from one thing to the next, and rapidly increased using a number of drugs, hopelessly addicted at probably 16 or 17.
Drugs and alcohol became our company, so it didn't matter about people after a while. So it didn't matter if I had people around me or not, as long as I had substance, then I had company.
I started to recognize that I needed to surrender.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 4 of our Addiction to Recovery podcast, as always hosted by myself, Kieran, and
me, Pete.
And today we are delighted to be joined by someone known very personally to myself and Pete. I was joined today with Kev. Kev, how are we? You okay?
Very well, thank you. Happy to be here.
And how do you feel about coming on doing a podcast?
This is my first podcast.
Ever?
So I'll tell you when we're done. Yeah, I've never done a podcast before. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, as the title says, it's Addiction to Recovery. So we're going to talk about, obviously, your past, your history. We're also going to talk about your time in recovery, where life is for you now, and where you see your life progressing to. All right. So,
great.
With every podcast, Kev, we always start with a question that was left by the previous guest.
Okay.
So we had, who was it last time, Pete? Lewis.
Yeah,
we had Lewis on last time. So at the end of the podcast, we'll also ask you a question to leave for the guest who's going to follow you next week. Okay?
Yeah.
So the question Lewis left for you was as follows. It says, what was the point when you knew you had to surrender and ask for help?
I come to addiction from a connection with my family. So my family has a history of addiction, and I was probably addicted the first time I tasted alcohol, and it progressed rapidly at the pace that it does with most people that are addicted. So I went from one thing to the next, and rapidly increased using a number of drugs, hopelessly addicted at probably 16 or 17. My life in addiction was a series of coming to that point where I would ask to surrender. So when we become addicted, I think we quickly recognize that the disease that we have is beyond our control. And that happened with me. And there's a series of events that happen with people that are addicted. As you both know, arrests, kicked out of school, thrown in jail, this whole series of things that happen to people that are addicted. We isolate, we tend to get rid of all of the people around us that are healthy. So all these things happened. And during that time, I started to recognize that I needed to surrender. And early in my addiction, I would wake up and pray every day. I would pray that I wouldn't continue doing what I was doing. And so in that sense, surrender was with me for probably 25 years in addiction, that I was in such a poor state that I knew I needed to do something different.
So the question is like, it's not one that you can give like a specific answer for. It's going to be like for myself personally, I'm not sure if Pete would relate, but it's a series of reaching points where you surrender, isn't it?
I think it is, Kieran. Yeah. I think it is.
It's not just one point.
I think it is. I think in addiction, don't we reach the point of hopelessness?
For me, I had to go, it seemed to be a process that after it happened, a lot of people who were watching it unfold sort of said to me, we were waiting for you to get to this point, especially people who are in recovery already. So people who have been down this road before, when they met me, they could see that I wasn't ready, but still kept me around. These are people in recovery, not people who I was using with. I was in recovery a couple of years before I got clean. And then when I did get clean, the people around me said, we were waiting for you. You had to have had enough. You had to have lost this. You had to go through this pain, but it was for you to lose. So they were just supporting me. And then it finally got to the point where I just had enough and I gave up. I thought, right, I can't take any more. That's it. Now I'm going to really try and apply everything that all the people in recovery have been suggesting that I do. And from that day, I started to apply it all, and I never used it again. That was my experience with recovery. I had to go through stuff that others went through. I hadn't gone through enough pain yet. I hadn't lost enough yet. I hadn't, whatever the process may be, it was different but similar to other people. But from people who were around me, outsiders who were looking in, who were trying to sort of guide me, they said to me, we could see you hadn't surrendered to any kind of program. You hadn't had enough yet. But when I had enough, I was with another guy was sponsoring me, and he was like, "This is the only fight you're going to have to surrender to win." And I was like, "That makes no sense to me. That makes no sense. You want me to give up to win a fight? That makes no sense." So then we went through it all, and I had to literally just say, "Look, I'll just throw the towel in on this. My way doesn't work. So let's try it this way that's been proving itself in the lives of millions over the last nearly 100 years." So I tried that way. I finally said, let's try your way.
And that word there, surrender, we highlight that. That's probably the worst word to say to an addict. Surrender.
Yeah.
What do you mean surrender? Because we like things our way, don't we?
Well, and yet one of the tenets of addiction itself is to surrender. And I was unable. One of the things about addiction is when I use mind or mood altering substances, I quickly become unable to do anything but surrender to it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're right. We say, whoa, surrender, give up. What do you mean? Throw in the towel.
Yeah.
And you say that to most addicts, and they say, no, I've been fighting the good fight. I get up every day and I try.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm stubborn. Most of us are stubborn.
Yep.
I rarely come across anyone who is more stubborn than myself. Maybe outward they seem it, but inside my head, I'm real stubborn. So for someone to say, you need to do this, you need to give up, in my head, it was give up, surrender. I'm stubborn. So I had to go through more pain, more loss, not just pain inward. I had to deliver more pain outward to people and see the pain in their faces.
And people think that you surrender once.
No,
you have to surrender daily.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to surrender every hour, every minute.
Well, we get stubborn again. And then we get back, the old habits seep in, then the pain comes with it.
That's where the program of recovery comes in. That's where these programs and these steps that we learn to maintain sobriety. I still use them today. What I think in addiction today, early on in this whole process, they reached people in recovery at they describe it as the last house in the road. So, when this program of saving people from addiction started, they were saving people in mental institutions and people in jails and people that had lost every single thing that they owned, and me included. But in today's recovery, we try to say you don't have to lose everything to get recovery. And that's something that I've seen over the years that I've been in recovery. They talk about raising the bottom now. And you say, at what point was I beat? I was beat when I had lost almost everything. And I ended up on the floor in a rehab facility crying. And gosh, that was December 28th, 2006. And so from that moment on, I found surrender. I accepted it. And what Pete talked about, I then asked for help.
Also not easy for people like us sometimes, is it?
Stubborn again.
Even today. I struggle to ask for help. So Kev, as we can tell by your accent, you're not local to this area.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about where you're from, a bit about your upbringing, How Kev was in the younger days.
So my family, if we're talking about addiction, my family's a big family, and my mom and dad loved us kids. My dad's an alcoholic, and his dad was an alcoholic, and so addiction runs in my family. My upbringing, being raised with a person that was addicted, my dad was an alcoholic, was full of anger and frustration. It was not an easy place to be as young kids living with somebody that's addicted and actively using. Not an easy place to be. I became distant as a child. Very common for the story of addiction. When I found drugs and alcohol, I thought I'd found something that I was missing. You know, because I had a fairly unhappy early childhood with my dad drinking. And so very early on when I started using, I thought, oh my gosh, common story in addiction. I was like, oh, I found it. Now I can be part of a group. Now I can feel okay within myself. Um, and that started off a 35-year run of addiction.
Where were you?
So in
brought up?
Northern California.
Northern
So
California.
one of the places, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And at that time, also full of drugs and alcohol. So my dad also owned a bar. He was a Navy man. He owned a bar. And so, yeah, the place I grew up with was full of drugs and alcohol, called the Emerald Triangle.
When
So-
you were really young, when you were a young boy, and you were around alcohol, yeah, you saw people drinking alcohol. What were your thoughts on it when you saw people drinking? Did you want to do what they were doing?
No, in fact, the first drink that I ever took by myself, I swore that I wouldn't be like my dad. I remember it
Yeah.
because I was so angry at my dad because he was angry all the time and he was hurting our family. And I didn't at all. I was estranged from my dad for that period of my life. And when I took that first drink, I said, "This is not going to do to me what it did to my dad."
Did you have a positive male role model in your life?
I do. It would be my dad.
Your dad, yeah. But
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
were little, was it not so much?
No, not so much. No, I was pretty much left alone.
Yeah.
You know, like many children of addicts, you know, I was pretty much left alone. Yeah.
Did you feel isolated growing up?
I did inside. Yes. Yeah. I felt different as
So-
many kids that come from addictive backgrounds. I felt different until I found drugs and alcohol.
I
Yeah.
sometimes felt lonely when I was with a lot of people. I'd feel lonely in a group of people.
Yeah.
It's probably all in my head, but I'd isolate myself and stuff.
Drugs and alcohol became our company, so it didn't matter about people after a while. So it didn't matter if I had people around me or not, as long as I had substance, then I had company.
Yeah.
Eventually, that was my company. And when I parted ways, it was just a couple of years ago, I had some kind of, it was like a feeling of grieving for my using and the drugs. And it was like I'd had this company for pretty much most of my life from a little boy. And we had good times, bad times, real shit times, you know, real high times, and then it was gone. It's similar to losing someone you've done a lot with, and it's a really strange feeling. I was just going through it. Someone actually in a meeting described it as they were grieving for their using, and I thought, wow, that's similar to how I feel. And it was really strange. It was necessary for that to happen, but I remember having that feeling. It was just like, it wasn't a feeling of I want to go and use again, but it was a feeling of I miss it. But it's hard to explain unless you
So
felt
you can't live with them, but you couldn't live without them.
similar.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, that was explained to me in this way. So I had a similar thing when I first quit using, was in early recovery. I was with my counselor. His name was Ray, lovely man. And I'm like, Ray, is this all there is to this? And Ray said, Kevin, you're going to ask yourself this question. If this is as good as it gets, what are you going to do? And he used to hammer that into me. He said, if this is as good as it gets, he said, your relationship with drugs and alcohol was the longest relationship that I'd ever had, bar my mother. It was longer than any other relationship that I had. 35 years.
More consistent as well.
More consistent.
Yeah.
And Ray went on to say, you know, this is like your God. It's been your partner. It's been your God. And it truly was what I depended on, what I thought I depended on. And that's the thing about drugs. It's what I thought I depended on.
Yeah, it wasn't reality.
It wasn't
your
reality.
perception of
No,
it was.
wasn't reality. No. In recovery, you know, I live 1,000 times, 100,000 times better.
Have you ever, you know, like, because you've said them words to me before, and we've spoke about this guy saying to you, if this is as good as it gets, are you okay with that? Have you ever been in a state of mind where I thought, this is, you know, in your recovery, where you thought, I'm not happy with this, if this is all it is, this is not enough. I want, you know, sometimes you get these thoughts where I'm going to go and do this again, I'm going to go and do that again and see if the outcome's different, see if I enjoy it. I know they're just thoughts, but do you ever get that?
Sure. And I would say, when I came into recovery, my strength in recovery was built on a 12-step recovery program. Lots of help. I was in a rehab facility. Don't have to have a rehab facility to get clean and sober. That program and continued contact with that program has, to this point, Pete, every single time that I've asked that question, been, it's not strong enough for me to go back doing what I was doing. And for me, I know that when I surrendered, go back to this word, when I surrendered, that I came on the other side of addiction. And I know that if I were to go and put a mood or mind altering substance in my body today, that it wouldn't take but a few moments, minutes, or hours for me to return, not where I was as an addict, but we return far worse. And so that thought of what's on the other side if I pick up and use drugs again it's always been clear to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I speak to people, I mean, I've spoken to them recently, but whenever I've spoke to people who have had years and years clean, then they have relapsed and gone back to drugs, they have said to me, it's like they had no time off and now it's worse, because they have all these responsibilities that they've accumulated over these years. They have all the knowledge of recovery, and then they use, and it's worse. It's just so much worse. They can't turn their head off. They have all these thoughts. They have all these responsibilities. The pain's worse. It's different. The dream of it'll be, you know, I'll get some form of escapism, or maybe it'll give me a break from life. None of that happens. It just goes bad real quick. That's what I hear.
Relapse is part of this process, and it doesn't mean that I couldn't relapse tomorrow. People say, am I ever going to pick up and use drugs again? I say probably not today. You know, and if I do the things that I've done to this point, I have a really good family and love and a good programmer. I mean, I know I could call you and say, hey, Kieran, I'm in a rough spot here, and I know that you would come and help me. And Pete, I know that's for lots of people. I mean, I know you could call 100 people, probably 100 people, and say, "Hey, could you come and help me?"
Yeah,
and they'd say, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll come." And so I think that's the hope of what we live and what this community of recovery is about. Is that, yeah, I'm going to get those points, and I still do. Today, I look at it like a little gremlin. You know, a little fucker will sit up there and he'll go, "Hey, it sounds like a great idea. That's 30-year-old Scotch whiskey. You know, why don't we have some of that?" You know, and I kind of look at it like a little gremlin today, and I'll be like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." You know, and so
we normally say devil,
gremlin.
Yeah, a little guy right there.
Yeah, I get it though. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
If that's a gremlin saying bad stuff, what's your analogy of the other way around?
The whole rest of me.
The
rest of still is there. Yeah, and occasionally he'll say, "Hey, wow, does that that looks good, smells good," but
you do that sometimes. That whatever that is, like everyone has different analogies, but there is something there in there. And sometimes it will say, "I wonder what it would be like if you smoked that," or what would it be like if I took two. You took two of them. I wonder he looks like he's flying. I wonder what it'd feel like if I did that.
Of course, yeah,
But
of course.
We don't do it, but we think it.
I think, I'm in this sobriety long enough to know that that's probably just part of my personality. Some of that can be addictive thinking, but some of it can also be, if I could say, hey, do you think you'd want to try that because it looks like it's fun? Probably your personality would be like, yeah, I'd like to give that a try. And I think so today, some of it, I've been at this a while. Some of it might be addictive personality. If I then really thought about it and started to do the addictive behaviors about it, then I would go, okay,
obsession about
the
doing
obsession,
it.
exactly, Kieran. Yeah, those things that we would say would be addictive behaviors. Yeah, absolutely. That would be the flags that we look out for.
You think some of them are just human traits?
Of course, yeah. You want to go faster on your motorcycle, huh?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I listened to a guy made share once. I'll explain it to you and Pete. See what he said. He said, if you offer someone broccoli or a Big Mac, whether you're an addict or not, they're most likely to go for the Big Mac and forget what's good. That's how he used that.
Sure.
That was, yours is a gremlin.
Sure.
His was the Big Mac and broccoli on each thing. He said less people would probably go for the broccoli than the Big Mac.
Sure. What I know about addiction is this. If we go into an addiction meeting, I would say it's remarkable how similar the stories are. And if anybody's there that has never been to an addiction recovery meeting and you go to your first meeting, it is likely that you're going to say, halfway through, you're going to say, did my family speak to you? How many times do we hear that? Did my wife tell you to come and say this because you're talking about exactly what happened to me? It's so common. It's dirt.
My first meeting, I heard someone talk about, I won't go into specifics about their daughter.
Sure.
And I thought my dad, my
Sure.
mom engineered that situation.
Sure, absolutely.
I've heard a few people say they think it's a cast of people
that
are set there.
Followed up by, we think you're a cult, which is common. And you go, no, really. There's, but anyway.
Yeah, religious cult.
Yeah, then we get that a lot. We get that a lot because there's no way that all you people could be talking about my story without it being something that, but no, in fact, what I hear over and over again is that the story of addiction is a disease. And so that disease progresses just like it does in almost everybody the same.
To people out there who suffer addiction, when we say addiction is a disease, I found that wording very difficult. So someone said, just break it down like you're at disease with stuff.
Yes.
But the more time I've spent in the recovery world, I do actually view it as a disease.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So what happens when I take mind or mood altering substances is a chemical reaction in my brain, and it breaks down any self-will I have. And rather than a normal person say, gosh, Kev, you just drank a half a bottle of vodka and you're about ready to start puking. You probably drank way too much. Just go home. No, my brain says, oh, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And so that chemical reaction in me is not a chemical reaction that occurs in somebody that isn't an addict. It sets us apart. One of the other things, there's a whole series of things that you could go on any of the websites and find this list of things that you could sort of diagnose yourself. People like us, we could probably see an addict coming from down the block or guess, hey, you know what? This person probably has the disease of addiction.
Yeah.
So when we look at addiction, it is a disease and it progresses almost identical in everybody that has it. Unfortunately, they described the disease of addiction as incurable and fatal without treatment.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah. Would you say that to be true?
Yeah, it is true. We see it all the time, don't we? But,
you guys were telling me it's one person every 2 weeks here in Coventry loses their life from addiction.
I don't know.
Is that what that number was being talked around? One person every 2 weeks is losing their life to addiction here in Coventry.
It could be. The other month there was like 3 people that we knew personally that lost their lives. And then there was 4 from another organisation that other people knew personally. So the numbers could go up and down, but we between us, I'm sure we know quite a few people.
I spoke to somebody today, a good friend of mine, and he'd said his best friend died of alcohol poisoning. He was 42 years old. I told my friend that I would mention him today and that he would be within my thoughts and prayers, because that's it was a reminder to me.
Yeah, it is. Do you remember, because we were talking about, you see people think that when they go to these recovery meetings that they were put on by their families, and it was a bit of a setup, but it's not. Do you remember the first things you identified with people saying when you were in your first recovery meeting? I know it'll be a while ago, but do you remember hearing anything and thinking, wow, that's me? Or do you remember hearing everything and going, I think like that, I feel like that?
I feel like almost everybody in the rooms of recovery, and when we enter those rooms, we say, look for the similarities and not the differences. And so, Pete, that was told to me early on, and so
Yeah.
there are similarities in my journey of addiction. There's something about this disease that kind of runs along in the same track.
All I could see when I first went to meetings was the differences. Even if a woman spoke, that it was up, my guard was up because that's a woman, or someone spoke about crack and heroin, my guard was up because I thought I was better than them.
And now
I don't even hear them words. I just what I could always relate to, if people was talking about crack, heroin, or what the substance would be, the aftermath was always the same. How I felt after I took my drug of choice, and that's what I concentrate on. How it made us feel. The substance is somewhat irrelevant. That's all right to say.
Absolutely.
How it makes us feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if this podcast goes out and somebody with gambling addiction were to see this, these kinds of things, this addiction, if you have the disease of addiction, I think we're talking the same language.
And when I first went to meetings and I managed to put the drugs down, the same things kept happening in my life. And then I started to grasp that maybe the issue isn't cocaine for me. Maybe the issue is Kieran.
Inside job.
Yeah, and that's a very difficult pill to swallow, pardon the pun.
Yes.
But until you do the work on yourself, you're probably not going to see progress.
Yeah. Many of us say that the drugs and alcohol that we were taking was a symptom. Did you say that's true, Pete?
Yeah.
Was it a symptom or a?
Yeah. Before I'd come into recovery, my belief was the only thing I need to do in my life is stop using drugs, and everything will be fine. My life will be normal, and I'll just go on like everyone else has, the natural order of life. I'll have a family, and I'll have a house, and I'll have a job. That was my belief before I come into recovery.
Yeah.
Then I come into recovery, and it's my using slowed down. I grew up a little bit. Mine was a long process. You say in meetings, when you're in your first meetings, Kieran, that you heard differences. I never heard anything. I was only interested in what I was saying. I was so self-obsessed that if anyone spoke, I would just be thinking, you need to hurry up because it's my turn to speak. Then I would speak, then I would fall asleep because I was fucking high, or I was that wasted. I'd be, if I got to speak fine, then I'd be gone. I don't remember what anyone said, really.
I couldn't wait to say Kieran addict, so it was my time. And now I've gone the other way. So it's weird.
Yeah. But then I come into recovery, and then finally I stopped taking drugs, and then life went on. I felt really good for an amount of time, and then I realised, it dawned on me that I still have all the same issues without the drugs. If anything, worse, because now I have to feel them, and I can't do things without consequence, because the consequences, I have to feel the guilt, I have to feel the shame. So it dawned on me that I had issues. The drugs weren't even, that.
And how do you feel when you didn't have the drugs to blame no more?
I felt everything.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah. I felt everything every day for every minute, and it was all. I felt a wave of 20 years of emotion being dammed up that just poured over me, and I can see why people relapse early, because when all them feelings and thoughts and guilts and I should have done this, a lot of mine was not what I did, more so of what I didn't do.
And how did you get over that early part?
Human connection was the main thing.
Kieran, how did you get over it?
Probably the same.
The same.
Yeah,
But
the human connection helped
I
me.
would reluctantly admit that at the time.
yeah,
I would slag the meetings off to the hill, but you would still find me on night after night. So I must
in a
have
meeting. Yeah.
No,
I must have liked them.
I needed one-on-one connection with at the time it was I had a sponsor at the time, and I created this massive support network. If anyone in it, because I knew I needed it, I was desperate to stay clean at this point. So if I was in a meeting and I heard a guy talk one tiny bit of sense, I'd get his number, and I'd just ping him a message in the morning. At one point, I was sending like 60 messages out before work in the morning, just so I just thought I need to get this. I've been coming to these meetings and I've been trying to do this for years. I need to really go for it, so I just went for it.
Gosh, yes.
But the human connection for me was, if I didn't have that guy to ring up and say, wow, I'm feeling like this. Wow, my head's going to fall off. Wow, what do you think to this idea? And he was like, that is fucking weird. Or whatever it may be. If I didn't have that, then I'd have just used, because it was too much.
The isolation feeds our addiction. So we have to do the opposite in order to move away from it. And that is connection. Yeah.
One of the things about addiction that continues to fascinate me is that in my world, we all kind of travel the same disease. It takes us to the same place. It either kills us or we get better. When I do drugs and drink, everybody that loves me gets sick. And that's a truth, because I don't know what the truth is. I don't know what reality is. And the other thing that happens is I stop growing emotionally. And so all those decades that I was a using addict, I had stopped in time emotionally growing. And so in early recovery, the program of recovery said something to me that to this day amazes me. And that is, Kevin, we will love you until you can love yourself. And I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't know how to love myself.
I heard that at meeting.
I didn't know.
And
What does that mean?
I don't know, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I understand what it means now, but at the time, I thought.
And now, in recovery meetings, we say the newcomer is the most important person that will come and sit in a meeting with us, is the newcomer.
For many reasons.
Yes.
For them.
Yep.
For them to, this is my opinion, is for them to come into a meeting to be new, so we can, swarm around them and help fix them. Sometimes, and this was said to me before, I come back from a relapse and I've been using for a year, and I come into a meeting and I was wrote off. I was just sick. I was so ill. And a guy said to me, and he's still going now, he said, thanks for coming tonight. Your pain has been a gift to me. I'm never going to use again.
We're reminded.
At the time, I thought, wow, but I get it now. I kept him clean. He saw me come in agony, and he knew that all his weird thoughts about using were bullshit.
Yeah.
And he just said, look, this is not a joke, but thanks for coming.
What a dose of honesty and love.
But I get it now, because I see people come in and I go, oh, them ideas I had, I'm not going to do them. I see the agony walk in the room, not even in the rooms of recovery, in the street. I see people and I just think, I don't really fancy that anymore. I don't fancy that. It's not for me anymore. I like what I do. I like my routine.
I understand what that meant today. And we will, and I tell that to people, we will love you until you can love yourself.
Said it to me a lot.
And that means this journey that takes space and time, and it takes application. It takes coming to meetings. It takes willingness. What are the 4 things that are suggested that we recommend to every person in recovery? Those 4 things: 90 meetings in 90 days. We recommend you do that, as many meetings as you can. And some people, one guy that we know in our meetings did that 4 times in a row. 90 meetings in 90 days, 4 times in a row. He said, I figured I just needed a bit more, which I find is that's good discipline.
I did 90 and 90.
Yeah.
And then I relapsed afterwards, and you couldn't get me back to the rooms quick enough to tell you all that's a load of shit.
Yes. But the second time.
But I was 90 days clean.
Yes.
At the time.
Yeah.
Kept you alive for them 90 days. I realised, and from my own experience, that people, like, for you to say them words, let us love you till you can love yourself and stuff, it makes people uneasy. Makes people uneasy. Because a lot of people come into recovery, they don't understand how to love anyone and how to be loved.
Yeah.
It took me a long time for me to meeting my daughter. That I learned what love was. Meeting my little girl, and then getting to know her as a little human. That to me, that's how I learned what true love was.
In sobriety.
Yeah. Oh yeah, in sobriety.
In sobriety,
She's never
yeah.
seen me drunk.
Yep.
She's never
Yep,
seen
yep,
me
yep.
wasted, and that's nothing. That's just how it was, right? So for me, and I've spoke to you about it before. I was like, I mean, when I was little, there was love available, but I don't think I was in the right headspace to accept it. I just think from when I was small, I don't know if I was just genetically made that way. I don't know, but I just weren't accepting it. I was just out there. My head was always in the clouds. I was doing this, that, and the other. But when I had my little girl, and then I got to know this little person, that's when I thought, oh, I know what love is now. I get this. I get all this. What people have been writing songs about for hundreds of years. What people have been telling their partners. What people have been writing, making films about. I get it now. Before I just thought, wow, there's a lot of stuff involved in love in the world. What's it all about? And then this person comes along and teaches me. And she's only like hours born. And she's just taught me the biggest lesson of all.
Yeah.
That was my experience.
And in a clean, healthy space.
Yeah, yeah.
That you could accept that. And,
yeah.
And
something
know that it was true.
Yeah, something happened in my mind, and I was able to accept it for the first time, and it was just like, wow. Now you have this in your life. You know, it was all worth it. Whatever's gone on, it was all worth it because it got me to that point, and all the real awful things I've did, and whatever's happened to me, I don't care because it got me to that time in my life where I met this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
That was my experience.
And if you hadn't have gone through all that pain in your life, chances are that you wouldn't be a dad now.
Yeah,
it's mad how things work out, isn't it?
Them chain of events were all worth it. All the pain was worth it. All the whatever, I don't know. Whatever happened, whatever I put out, whatever I received, it was worth it. I'd do it all again exactly the same.
Because you're here.
Yeah,
today.
I'm here. She's here. I've got some good stuff to live for.
Yeah.
No, we have a laugh, don't we? We have life ain't that bad.
Oh, life is fantastic.
Yeah, life's good. We go sailing on boats. And
stuff. We're doing fine.
Yeah.
It comes up for a laugh, isn't it?
Compared to how it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing that they told me when I was new to recovery was, if you apply yourself, we have never seen anybody fail that has fully applied the program of recovery in a rigorous, keyword, honest way. And what these chaps and people told me then was, if you don't succeed, it's likely a problem with honesty somewhere. This drift back, because, I quit so many times and rehab and all those things. And then somewhere I would drift away from the honesty that I found in being sober, that surrender. I took back control. You say surrender. I say, yeah, many people struggle in recovery because they take back control. And me as well. So that again, reapplying myself to surrender. But what they also told me was, they said, your life will be many times greater than you ever imagined.
Yeah.
And as an addict, I'm like, no way, I'm a loser. I'm a drug addict. I'm a drunk. I have nothing. I'm twice all these things that happened. It was all bad. But they said, no, if you apply yourself, this way of living, this clean, honest way of living, has many, many benefits.
I heard that as well, and I just read that. I read it as, I just apply myself when it suits me.
Yeah. Well, it's a lesson, isn't it?
But it has to be. Even today, I slip up. And
I'll take control now. I'm driving.
I see people in recovery, and they apply a lot of recovery. And this is my own experience as well. And I only see it because I've done it. So I spot it because I've got it. Not so much now, but I've had it and I've done it and it didn't end well. But I see people, they say, right, I'm doing this and I'm doing these meetings and I'm doing my step work. Then their behaviors start to be impure. Then they justify it. Then their behaviors slip and they start doing this. They know they shouldn't be doing it, but they justify it. So these justifications that we stand by, our stubbornness stands by them.
Yeah.
Because mine would, I'm going to do that to this person because they did it to me before. So I'm going to carry on doing that. And that's, that sounds like a them problem. And before you know it, it comes back and bites you on the ass. But
Yeah.
I'm still doing all my programs, so it's okay.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with
Yeah,
the people
yeah.
I used to hang
Yeah, I'm
out
still
with,
ringing my
but I'm
sponsor.
okay.
I just ain't telling him
Yeah.
everything.
I've stopped by my dealer's
Yeah,
house,
yeah.
but beyond that, I'm
Yeah.
fine. And that's kind of how it starts, isn't it? It can start that way. I mean, it starts
Justifications and putting people in the graves, man.
and you distance yourself
Mm.
from this found way of living, these simple rules. Yeah, it can be trouble.
We just got to watch out for them.
Mm.
That's where having a sponsor, having people around you that have their intentions for you are pure, they might point out to you what you're doing there. You know, if you have no guidance at all, even if you were years down the line, you started doing things you shouldn't be, and no one's there to say, "You sure you should be doing that? You sure that'd be good for you?" You may fuck up.
Yeah. For many years, I was astonished that you could follow me wherever, and I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
When nobody's looking, I found the ability to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I'd never done that before. I was always, hiding from people and, doing stuff when nobody was looking. And then in this way of life, when nobody's looking, you could come and peer over my shoulder or, whatever. I might do an embarrassing thing or two, but when nobody's looking, I learned how to do the right thing.
They say that's a really important aspect of recovery, isn't it? To
Very
do the
difficult.
right thing even when no one's looking.
Even when no one's looking, yes. Yeah.
I was very good at doing the right thing when the eyes are on me.
Oh gosh, yeah.
To look good.
I always, in the first year of me being fully clean and stopped taking drugs, I went through I had a lot of psychosis in my using and a lot of paranoid thoughts, and I had this thought that I was being filmed a lot. I always thought cameras were filming me. If there was red lights on, I always think, well, I know it's filming me anyway, so I just thought I best just think it's filming me. So anyway, I was in that mindset. It's not there anymore so much. But I remember saying to my sponsor at the time about being filmed, and electronics used to really make me feel uneasy, phones on and stuff like that. And he said, if it was filming you, what would it see? What do you do? What that you And I thought, nothing. I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be doing anymore. I'm not actually doing anything that if you did film me, you'd probably be quite bored. If you were listening to me and, you probably hear a lot about recovery. You probably hear a lot about, if you're into that, you best film me. But if you're not, then you're wasting your tape. But my head was like, I'm being filmed, and I had this self-obsession, like someone's planting cameras on me, and that's what he said. He said, what would they be filming? What would you be doing? And I'm like, not a lot. I'll probably be in the gym or I'd be in a meeting somewhere.
If a camera had been following me the last 3 weeks, they'd be absolutely surprised what I do in my job role.
They'd be tired.
I've been, as you know, I've been traveling as well recently.
I've been following you around. Yeah, you're here and there.
I'm suffering a lot with anxiety at the minute.
Yes.
It's hard sometimes to admit that, but I suppose everyone gets anxious, don't they? But it's been
exercise helps me.
And how do you work through that? I mean, what have you been doing?
Very poorly, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
Not always.
No.
Not always. I see it because I work with you, so I see
it's more at home. I struggle with it more. It's like as I like to feel there's a point to me. I don't know whether you used to feel like
purpose.
of worth.
Purpose.
And at work, I feel like worth, and at home, I feel a bit dejected at times, a bit lonely. But it doesn't always feel that way.
That's common.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a human trait or a lot of people who are just like us, but I think that's quite common. With the whole anxiety thing, I've had anxiety since I can remember. When I was a real little boy, I didn't know what it is. As an adult, I know it's anxiety. But I've always found the more I exercise, the better I feel. The more I train, the less anxiety. That just seems to be the cure with no consequence.
Now, are you running?
No.
Pete talks about exercise, and I know how much you like to run. Are you?
Yeah, I did. My first year of recovery, I keep repeating the same thing. I run a lot.
You told me you were doing something with running. Was it 1,000 miles or what was it?
I did that last year.
Okay.
I did all right.
Remember when you did 100k in Mail, 300k in Mail?
But I think that is an addictive mind. I'll do it, Pete, innit? I'll do it to the hill for a short period of time,
Yeah.
and then I'll just do nothing.
Yeah.
It's one extreme to the other. And it's like we speak to our lads in it about don't what's that word, Pete? What you said,
Obsess or
don't show us, don't tell us, show us.
oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Walk the
yeah.
walk.
Yeah, and I'm very much in the tell you category at the minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. But I just got to work my way through it. It's important though, because people may look at myself and Pete in the job role that we do, like, you must never feel like that. We bloody do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't take drugs because
Yeah.
we feel like that, which is quite an important message to get across, isn't it?
Yes.
Just have to deal with it in different ways now.
Yes.
I think with the lads who our lads are brilliant. The lads that we work with, our message to them is to exercise and take your recovery seriously. So we have to do the same. I have to do the same anyway, because I know I start to come apart and start to come undone if I don't. So I'm on it. And there's been many times where I think I can't be asked to do this today, but I know I'm going to feel better if I do. And I went through stages with the exercise of being consistent and then nothing. Now I'm just like I maybe exercise too much, but it makes me feel better than if I don't do it at all. So too much for me is better.
Yeah, I think we all seek when we're healthy. I think particularly as recovering addicts or people that can be addicted, we tend to be a kind of a hard-driven personality. So if you go into a recovery room, most people's perception would be that you would find people there that are underachievers, that are drug addicts. Yeah, that's true. Or, or sort of losers in life, and exactly the opposite is true. I find of people that are addicted. You'll find creative, beautiful, vibrant people who have a disease, and driven people.
Persistent.
We also persistent. Yeah, stubborn. What else would you describe us as a group of people?
Controlling.
Okay. Yep. Controlling tendencies to control our environments. What do we say?
I describe myself as.
Yeah. What do we say in addiction? If we could just be the director,
Resilient.
and everybody would do exactly what we say, the world would be fine. Yeah.
You meet people when they come into recovery. You see their appearance. You see the way they are. They're a bit scatty. You see them a year later. They are obsessed with perfection. They are on time. They're resilient.
Yeah.
They don't give up. We met a guy the other day who employs people in recovery. He said they're the best workers they ever had.
Yep.
I mean, he's employed 60 people who are in recovery. He said they don't have days off. They turn up. They're consistent. They're obsessive, which can be a bonus sometimes because they keep going and going and going.
Know people that are quite, that what's that word, Pete? Where they're easy going. I'd love to be, like
head in the clouds.
Things go, and I just think, I can't be like that.
I'm jealous of them people.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I worked with a lad before, and anything that happened to him, he used to go, "Oh wow," and then carry on about his day. And I was like, "Oh wow, I'd love to be him." And he used to say out loud, he used to go, "Oh, that's not work. This ain't turned up. The whatever's gone wrong." And then he used to look at me and just go, "Oh wow," and then just go on about his day.
I think all these traits we could find in many people in recovery. Not, I mean, there's one of everybody in recovery. So, but I think many people in recovery would be this way. And I think one of the things that we look for when we go down the road a ways, when we're finding the benefits of a life in recovery without drugs or alcohol, that we do seek balance. And I think that for most of us, that's what we seek. I still seek balance. I think
that's where we're trying to head to, isn't it?
Healthy
balance.
Yeah.
Healthy balance.
And in my life where I seek it, if I step away from my recovery program, which I did, you guys know, a few years ago, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 years ago, I had a heart attack. And when I had a heart attack, I just stopped wanting to talk to people. It was just a personal thing with me. And I had a heart attack.
Did it knock your confidence?
I didn't want to speak to anybody. I was just done talking.
Yeah.
And I stepped away from a long-time relationship with my recovery community. And what happened? Over a couple of years, I started to get those behaviors of feeling unease. And I just wasn't able to to think in a way that was solving my problems, that was bringing peace to my world. And my world was kind of like, I looked at the spinning top. After a while, it just sort of started to wobble a bit. And it was my mind. It was, some people call it untreated addiction, rattling around in my head. But it brought me back. It brought me back to the recovery rooms. And today, I don't think I'll ever leave again, because what I get when I go and I sit and you say that person walks in the door, and I'm reminded of such beautiful honesty that occurs in our community. And I'm reminded, and I think, okay. And yet we get to experience extreme stories of happiness and joy from people who were hopeless, living under a bridge, and 6 years later owns a business, and that's common, and you think, oh, great.
How long was you in your activities? Was it 35 years?
35 years, yeah.
That's a
That was a long time,
long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that your entire life, Pete?
I'm 35.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're not mad.
Yeah.
Some achievement. Yeah.
That's a good old record.
Yeah.
And how long have you not been in that life now? How many years?
Was
is
it?
it?
December 28, 2006 was
What's that?
16, 17 years. I don't know.
That's amazing.
Counting's
Isn't it?
not my
No, it's not my forte.
It's been a while. And every time that I've wanted to use, you ask me, has it ever been strong enough to go back?
Yeah.
And I would say, Pete,
No.
because what I had was just absolute misery and hell. And when I go to meetings today, gosh, I'm reminded, and I think, oh, I don't want to do that again.
No.
Yeah.
I think when these fantasies come in our heads, it doesn't remind us of any of the pain, the misery. It's just a quick thought of, that'd be fun. That'd be good. It cuts out all the pain, crying, and whatever comes with it. I just don't go to that bit. I had to go to the glorification of it. When we think about all this cool stuff that probably half it never happened anyway. We're selling ourselves this. It's just bullshit, isn't it?
This thing.
That's what it is.
I was told by my sponsor, Steve G. Steve said it's an 8-inch journey. An 8-inch journey. Recovery is an 8-inch journey. And that's the distance between the average human's ear to ear. Steve said that's the thickness of your head. And he said that's the journey of recovery. The drugs and alcohol largely were a symptom. And that's not with everybody. We have a group of people who self-medicate. And you could self-medicate for a lot of reasons. So it doesn't work with everybody, because some people have physical ailments, or, psychologically they're treating a serious malady and they do it with drugs. But for me, the drugs and alcohol were a symptom.
So what's life like now for you?
My life in recovery has been rich and wonderful. And when I first started those years ago, they said, you won't imagine how good your life will be if you achieve freedom from drugs and alcohol. And millions of people recover. They told me, Kevin, that millions of people recover. There's a program of recovery, and there's a community of recovery. And I was in such a bad way, and they said, no, we can help you. And they did. And they promised me. And I'm a person that doesn't believe when somebody promises me. And I didn't believe it then. I said, oh, you're bullshit. You're trying to sell me something. No, we promise you, Kevin. And they were right.
Yeah, they weren't trying to sell you something. They were trying to give you something. It's the truth, isn't it? Yeah, they're just trying to give you something.
They were trying to give me
they're just trying to give you something.
Yeah,
I felt that though. I thought, what do these people want?
What are they selling me? I said, you can't be true. You can't.
Yeah.
I'd never had somebody try to give me something out of love, to say, look what we have and look at how we got it. And we just make suggestions. One of the things about this process is nobody's going to tell you what to do. We're just going to make suggestions. We're going to say, hey, if you want what we have, this is what we did. There isn't anybody going to say, you need to do this and this and this and this. It's, hey, Kev, we suggest you stop digging. You're in a deep hole. And once you stop digging, then we're going to suggest you do these 4 things. 90 meetings in 90 days. get a sponsor,
Mm.
get
Service
service.
position.
Yep. And number 4,
Step work.
step work. Step work. All of those things I still do and have.
Mm.
Have every one of those things today.
Yeah,
I don't
same.
currently have a service. I completed it about 6 months ago. I was the home group representative last time. So yeah.
That was I know.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah. And when I have a problem in my life today, both you guys know, I just go to the book of recovery and I look at the step that most fits my issue. Now, I'm not very intellectually deep, and my brain's kind of like a box of rocks. So I just go back to the program of recovery and I'll just open it up and say, well, okay, here you go, kind of here's where I'm at. And go to a meeting and ask for help and say, I'm at unease about this. And seek your advice and say, hey, I'm having a problem here. And that's how it works today.
So, I think what time are we on now? Okay, all right. So I think we're approaching the end of the podcast now, aren't we? And I think Kevin, you've been an absolutely brilliant guest. Thoroughly enjoyed that. So it's your time now to think of a question that we're going to leave for our next guest who's going to come on next week. And that'll be the first thing they answer.
I thought about this when you gave me that question, and it would always be this. In recovery, when we're asked to share, there's a method, and that is to share your experience, your strength, and your hope. So anytime we're asked to speak in a meeting or to describe what's going on with us, that would be the guide. And so I would ask the next person that sits here one word that describes each of those: their experience, one word; their strength, one word; and their hope, one word.
Brilliant question, that is.
That's it. You're going to remember that, Pete?
Yeah.
I'll remember that question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's been very special for me today. Thank you.
How have you found it?
It's wonderful. And I would say to all those people that might listen to this, that in recovery, when we're asked if we can help, the answer, if we can, and it's okay for us, is always yes. And that's a suggestion. And so with that, I'd say, yeah, if you ask me, I'm always going to say yes, because that was the suggestion given to me. And I thank you both, because this has been a special thing for me today.
Us too, yeah. Well, me. I can speak for myself. Yeah, it's been really nice. Thanks. Thank you, Kev.
Thank you, Kev. And as always, if you're listening to this and you can relate to anything Kev said, or you're experiencing any addiction issues, then never hesitate in getting in contact with us at the Dynamo Project. We're available on all social media platforms. And yes, never hesitate to get in touch. Pete, are you happy?
Yeah, all good, yeah.
Okay. And as always, you're not alone. There's people out there that have been where you are, and there's people out there who are now in recovery. And Kev, you were a perfect example of someone lost to the world of active addiction who's now sitting here today. We couldn't do the maths, could we? X amount of years soberly, but it's a lot.
Peace and love. Yeah.
That itself is a very powerful message. And I want to thank you personally for coming on.
Thanks,
Thoroughly
man.
enjoyed it. And we look forward to the next episode, and we'll see you all guys later.